Today's determined attackers easily bypass even the most advanced network defenses. Trying to ramp up staff to detect their backdoors can cost thousands of dollars and take months, even years. With Active Countermeasures AI Hunter, we enable junior analysts to detect even the most advanced backdoors in a matter of hours. Sign up for a demo and purchase our product today by visiting activecountermeasures.com/ESW. Active Countermeasures. Make every analyst a hunter. The greatest threat to businesses today isn't the outsider trying to get in. It's the people you trust, the ones who already have the keys, your employees, your contractors, and privileged users. 60% of online attacks are carried out by insiders. To stop these insider threats, you need to see what users are doing before an incident occurs. Observit combats insider threats by detecting risk activity, investigating in minutes, effectively responding, and stopping data lost. Give it a test drive at observit.com/Security Weekly. Skeleton keys, golden tickets, forged packs, DC Sync, DC Shadow. The Active Directory attack surface is expanding faster than admins can keep up with. Securing your environment begins with implementing least privilege administrative models, but does not end there. Many organizations send Active Directory syslog events to a SIM platform. However, logs are noisy, of limited scope, and are time-consuming to review and act upon. Active Directory is secure when it's clean, understood, configured properly, monitored closely, and controlled tightly. StealthBits technologies provide solutions that monitor, secure, and detect the latest threats against Active Directory. Visit them today at stealthbits.com to learn more. Are you looking for high-performance data storage that's easy to use yet secure enough for the Department of Defense? Look no further. Racktop Systems gives business software-defined data storage complete with embedded compliance, security, and data encryption. Don't let cyber threats, regulatory demands, or the complexity and growth of your data overwhelm your business. Racktop's high-performance data management platform gives you the tools you need to address the most demanding data challenges. Think beyond storage. To learn more, visit racktopsystems.com. Welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. John Strand and Chris Breton are here with me on the lines via Skype to talk about what little news Let's start with something that I like. But first, an announcement. Make sure you go to securityweekly.com/on-demand. The state of penetration testing, the state of endpoint security are both there for you to go consume, register for, and consume. So make sure you check that out. Myself, John Strand, Michael Santarcangelo collaborated on those various webcasts, and they are there to understand where we are today in the marketplace with those technologies and hear from some of our sponsors on their point of view of that problem. I want to start with one of the few things I liked in the stories this week, and that came from Synopsys, whose product Coverity talked about this approach that I really like, and that is basically, and I've heard this described before, so I'm not quite sure it's a new feature, but essentially, if a developer gets notified that there's a vulnerability in their code, this could be a static analysis tool, maybe a dynamic tool, however that vulnerability is discovered, there is then also accompanied with that a training module that they can go learn about that particular vulnerability and then go fix the problem. And I really like this approach. I think this is really how developers learn. It doesn't require that they not write code, because as Chris and John can both attest to, right? You want developers writing code. That's the goal, right? If they have to stop and go to training for a week to learn stuff, that's good, but they're not necessarily writing code when they're at training. So if you can do it in smaller increments, I also think that's a better learning experience. I wrote this vulnerability and I don't understand why it was a vulnerability. I can go watch this training module and then go fix it and hopefully adjust my processes so I'm not reintroducing that vulnerability as I write more code. What do you guys think?
Yeah, this is one of those things that sounds like a fantastic idea. You're like, this is brilliant. This is exactly its point. You make a mistake, we show you the problem, we give you the solution. The reality of this, and Chris, I'd like to get your impression of this as well. SANS for years has been trying to do secure development, secure coding classes, and they're a nightmare to teach. I taught one 10, 15 years ago. And it doesn't matter what you're talking about. You're like, hey, you shouldn't be using get-s or gets, whatever you want to call it. And you will always have someone in the class that disagrees with you. And everybody has their own coding background. Everyone learned in college that this is the right way to do it, or they learned it from somebody else, this is the way to do it. And they always disagree. And they try to find ways around the problem all of the time. So while training, I think, is great, I'm a huge fan of it. It's just one of those things where coding is almost like language and English English writing. There's a lot of subjectivity to it, and it just creates these huge fights. So I think it's a fantastic idea. I just see just total up in arms developers arguing with every little point in this training.
So I think it depends upon what you're using for a development process. If you're still waterfall based, yeah, you're going to get a lot of pushback because a developer who worked on code 3 months ago never ever wants to touch that again. And help it. So back, preferably within 15 minutes. More likely, it's going to be within about 12 hours. It has value there. The other reason I like the idea is because a lot of times, if it's let's say you've got a security person who went in and did a pen test and they found this vulnerability, they know what the vulnerability is. They know how to exploit it. They don't necessarily know how to fix it in the code. So now you've got a pen tester that knows the problem's there but doesn't know how to fix it, and you have a developer that's in the same boat. To have some information to fall back on, that could be really useful. What would make this idea even better from my perspective is not only give them training, give them unit testing. In other words, show them how to fix show them how to fix their code, and then show them how to write a test to make sure that it never breaks again. That way, you not only fix it this time, you fix it every time going forward.
And Keith Hewlett and I were talking about this on Application Security Weekly, and it's there's an acronym for it, but basically the suggestion is that you write the test first before you go fix the code. So you write the test for that condition. You test it in your code, and you're like, yep, it's definitely finding it, so my test is valid. Now I'm going to go fix it, and then I have the test to make sure that it's fixed. And then I put that test in my automated test suite, continuous integration testing, and then it just continually tests for that.
Yeah, that's test-driven development. You can do a little bit with that. It's hard to catch the security stuff. Typically, what you end up doing is you write a test that says, it's going to fail in its current state, but once I implement the feature the way it's supposed to be, now it goes through and passes. You're not going to necessarily catch anything performance-based or security-based that way. Usually those come in when you go through and you start refactoring your code.
So let's talk about Splunk agrees to acquire VictorOps. Now, this was one where I started reading the thing, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I'm reading things like increasingly turning towards artificial intelligence and machine learning that help them with critical customer experience, and it just, So basically, Splunk bought this company called VictorOps, and I was like, well, what do they do? You go to VictorOps website, and I like this so much better. They're right on their front page. We make on-call suck less. Love it. Like, dude, I now I'm starting to get like what you do, right? And they talk about on-call management plus automated escalations plus centralized system information as 3 points that they're messaging on. I'm like, oh, that makes a whole lot more sense, and it's a much more refreshing take on some of the marketing messages that we see. And basically, they enable DevOps teams to speed resolution and learn from past actions to make proactive recommendations. That I also get, and I like that too. So that was pretty cool. I'm not quite sure how the marrying of the two between, like, how Splunk is playing in this like DevOps monitoring kind of role. But I thought it was an interesting acquisition.
Sounds like a Ops Center play.
Yeah,
they're trying to be a more complete solution for any operation center.
Yeah, probably to compete with ServiceNow and other similar kind of solutions, right? So A10 Networks announces the Ingress controller. Have no idea what they're talking about here. It automatically provision application delivery configuration policies and ties directly into the container lifecycle to automatically update application delivery configuration with the dynamism of a Kubernetes environment. I was like, wow, that is some interesting use of the English language. What does it really mean? It sounds provocative, I get, especially dynamism. That was a good one.
Is that even a word? Dynamism.
I don't think we could challenge that.
Just be dynamic.
Come on, it's marketing. Does it matter if it's really a word?
This is true.
You know, it's been a while, Paul, since we've really just tore into like these marketing write-ups. We used to. I think it was almost every single show. I realized we were spending 75% of our time asking, "What is this garbage?" Yeah. We haven't had one that bad in a while.
So it was Device Authority announces Keyscaler. So this sounds like an IoT security play, and it sounds like some of the trends we've been seeing where they're trying to provide IoT security to the provider level. And I think this is primarily targeted at ISPs that want to maybe manage their customers' routers, although it could extend out into if you're a product company, people are purchasing your IoT device, and you want to manage those. I'm seeing a lot more traction in this space versus the enterprise space, which is, hey, you've got a lot of IoT stuff on your network. We'll help you identify and manage that. So there's definitely two kind of newer spaces that are emerging in this area that I think have two very different goals. I think it's great if we can hit it from the provider front, but I think also enterprises need a solution as well.
Do you think this is because providers are getting more and more concerned about liability if they can't actually push updates and patch and take care of security issues?
Yes, I absolutely think that's in terms of going after the device manufacturers themselves, we've seen the FTC take some actions against those companies, but I also think, it's a liability thing, with ISPs and their customers. So. What else do we have in the news? There was a lot of performance, like network performance monitoring based stuff. And I think that's because Cisco Live's conference was this week. So Riverbed made a product announcement that really looked like an IT operations performance monitoring thing. Manage Engine also made an announcement about enhanced IT operations. They talked about hybrid IT, but they really didn't define what hybrid IT really means, which was kind of disappointing. And NetScout talked about smart data, but also didn't talk about like what smart data versus dumb data.
I was really hoping you would know what that was.
I don't. I'm sorry. I don't know how your data. I think it's what you do with the data that could be smart or maybe not so smart that matters more so.
I think it's data wrapped in XML, shoved into a JSON message, and thrown down a VPN pipe. I don't know. I'm just going to throw words together like they are and hope it makes sense.
That sounds great. Tufin also made some announcements on automating capabilities with their orchestration suite. Still look to me very much focused on the firewall aspect of it, which is kind of interesting. Although they did announce support for firepower. Did I say that right?
Yep.
Yeah, for firepower as well, which is some of the complaints I've seen with some of these firewall management and orchestration suites is the ability to support some of those new capabilities that so-called next-gen firewall providers are making available, being able to keep pace with that technology. So that was kind of interesting. The one I want to talk about a little bit is ServiceNow has announced a new conversational bot, and we've seen vendors, both operations and security, kind of release this thing where you interact with the product via this artificially intelligent bot that can provide you with answers. I don't know if I'm just like too traditional of a security person to really latch on to this idea. I do understand that it can speak to the problem we spoke about earlier in this show, where the people who are junior level security people or not in the security group need to interact with the security solutions, and maybe they do that through this conversational bot, although I guess I'm basing that on experiences I've had trying to talk to bots that pop up on people's websites and ask me if I have any questions. Is this a valid solution to interact with various security products?
I think if you're a slow typer, I think for most of us who've been at this for a while, I can input information into the keyboard faster than I can actually speak it, and at least speak it clearly that something is going to be able to interpret what I say. So I think for some folks may be helpful. For a lot of us, probably not.
I think it's going to be the future one way or the other. It's just not here yet.
No, I completely agree. So that was really it for the news. There really was not much that news this week to really write home about, to be quite honest with you, unless you guys had anything.
Nope, I got nothing else.
Yeah, same here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chris. Thank you, John, for appearing on this episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. We'll see you next time.